She was only 8 years old, too young to understand why life was so cruel. But when her sick mother needed money for hospital bills, she picked up a bag of yams and walked into the richest neighborhood in Lagos. What she found in one mansion would change everything: a photograph, a secret, and a love story that was never supposed to end. Sit back and find out as we dive into the story of how a little girl's courage reunited two hearts that were torn apart by lies. In a small hospital room in the heart of Ikeja, a little girl sat quietly beside her mother's bed. Her name was Victory, and she was only 8 years old. Her mother, Lilith, lay still under a thin white sheet. Her face was pale, covered in sweat, and her breathing was slow and heavy. Victory held her mother's hand tightly, even though it felt cold and lifeless. The room smelled of medicine and sadness. The walls were painted a dull green, and the ceiling fan above them barely moved. Victory didn't cry. She had learned not to cry a long time ago. Crying didn't change anything. It didn't bring food. It didn't pay bills. It didn't make her mother better. Victory looked at her mother's face and whispered, "Mommy, please wake up. I'm here." But her mother didn't move. Her eyes stayed closed. Her lips stayed silent. Just then, the door opened. A tall man wearing a white coat walked in. It was Dr. Adebayo, the hospital doctor. He held a brown file in his hand and looked tired. He stopped at the foot of the bed and looked at Victory with eyes that said he had bad news. "Good afternoon, young lady," he said gently. Victory stood up quickly and answered, "Good afternoon, sir." Dr. Adebayo opened the file and flipped through some papers. Then he sighed. "Your mother's condition is stable for now, but she needs more treatment. We've given her some drugs to bring down the fever, but we need to run more tests." Victory nodded. "Okay, sir." The doctor paused, then said the words she feared the most. "But there's a problem. The hospital bill is now 45,000 naira. If we don't receive payment by tomorrow morning, I'm sorry, but we'll have to stop the treatment." Victory's heart sank. 45,000 naira. She didn't have that kind of money. She didn't even have 5,000 naira. "Sir, please," she said, her voice shaking, "please don't stop treating my mummy. I will find the money, I promise." Dr. Adebayo looked at her with pity. He had seen too many cases like this. Poor families, sick patients, no money. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "but this is a hospital, not a charity. We have our rules." Victory swallowed hard. "I understand, sir. But please, just give me until tomorrow. I will bring the money." The doctor stared at her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp. If the money is not here, we'll have to discharge her." "Thank you, sir," Victory said, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Adebayo walked out of the room, leaving Victory alone with her unconscious mother. She sat back down on the edge of the bed and looked at her mother's face. Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away. She leaned forward and kissed her mother's forehead gently. "Don't worry, Mummy," she whispered. "I will get the money. I promise." She stood up, adjusted her school uniform dress, and walked out of the hospital room with a heavy heart but a strong will. Victory knew exactly what she had to do. The small apartment where Victory and her mother lived was not far from the hospital. It was just one room with a tiny kitchen in the corner and a bathroom that barely worked. The paint on the walls was peeling off, and the ceiling had brown stains from old rainwater, but it was home. Victory pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was quiet. Too quiet. She missed hearing her mother's voice, her mother's laughter, her mother's songs while cooking. She walked to the corner where her mother kept the yams. There were about 15 of them in a large brown sack. Her mother used to sell them every evening by the roadside to make money for food and rent. But now her mother was too sick to sell anything. Victory bent down, grabbed the sack, and tried to lift it. It was too heavy. She pulled again, this time with all her strength. The sack moved a little. She dragged it toward the door, one pull at a time. Her arms hurt, her back hurt, but she didn't stop. When she finally got the sack outside, she tied the top with a rope and placed it on her head, the way she had seen her mother do many times. It was so heavy that her neck bent slightly to the side, but she balanced it and started walking. Victory didn't go to the poor neighborhoods. She knew the people there had no money. Instead, she walked toward the rich part of town, Victoria Island, where the big houses and fancy cars were. It was far, but she didn't care. She had to save her mother. As she walked under the hot afternoon sun, people stared at her. Some shook their heads, some whispered. But no one helped her carry the load. No one asked if she was okay. Victory kept walking. After almost an hour, she finally reached Victoria Island. The streets were cleaner here. The houses were bigger, the gates were taller. Everything looked different. Victory stopped in front of the first house she saw. It had a tall black gate with sharp edges on top. She knocked on the gate. A security guard opened a small window and looked down at her. "What do you want?" he asked rudely. "Good afternoon, sir," Victory said politely. "I'm selling yams." "Fresh yams. Do you want to buy?" The guard laughed. "Are you mad? Do we look like people who buy yams from the street? Go away before I call the police." He slammed the window shut. Victory's heart hurt, but she moved to the next house. At the second house, a woman opened the gate herself. She looked at Victory with disgust. "Why is a dirty little girl knocking on my gate? Go away, we don't want anything from you." She didn't even let Victory speak before she shut the gate in her face. Victory moved to the third house. This time, a young man opened the gate. He looked at her and smiled a little. "What are you selling, small girl?" he asked. "Yams, sir. Fresh yams, only 500 naira per tuber." The man looked at the sack on her head and felt a little pity. He brought out his wallet and gave her 1,000 naira. "Take this. Keep the yams. Use the money to buy something to eat." Victory's eyes lit up. "Thank you, sir. God bless you." The man nodded and closed the gate. Victory continued walking, knocking on more gates. Some people bought from her, some gave her money without taking the yams. Some insulted her and told her to leave. By evening, Victory had sold about half of the yams. She counted the money in her hand. 18,000 naira. It was a lot, but it was still not enough. She needed 45,000 naira. She looked at the remaining yams in her sack and sighed. Then she saw it. At the end of the street, standing tall and proud, was the biggest mansion she had ever seen. It had white pillars, a golden gate, and a long driveway lined with flowers. The house looked like something from a movie. Victory took a deep breath. "This is my last chance," she whispered to herself. She walked toward the mansion, her legs tired, her shoulders aching, but her hope still strong. When she reached the golden gate, she knocked gently. A security guard in a black uniform opened it and frowned at her. "What do you want?" he asked sharply. "Please, sir, I'm selling yams." "Can I speak to the owner of the house?" "Are you crazy?" the guard shouted. "Do you know who lives here? This is the house of Mr. Philip Johnson, one of the richest men in Lagos. He doesn't have time for street sellers like you. Go away." Victory didn't move. "Please, sir. Just let me try. My mother is sick. I need money for her hospital bill." The second guard, a younger man, walked over. "Ogre, leave this small girl alone. She's just a child. Let's throw her out." They grabbed Victory by the arm and started pulling her away from the gate. Victory struggled. "Please, sir. Please just let me see him. Please." Inside the mansion, Philip Johnson sat in his large study room. He was 35 years old, tall and handsome, with sharp eyes and a serious face. He wore a white tuxedo suit even though he was at home. On his desk were piles of documents, contracts, and business files. He was on the phone, arguing with someone. "I don't care what the board says. If they don't agree to my terms, I'll pull out of the deal completely." As he spoke, he glanced out of the window that overlooked the front gate. That's when he saw it. 2 security guards were pulling a small girl away from the gate. The girl was crying, begging, holding a sack on her head. Philip's heart tightened. He didn't know why, but something about the scene bothered him. He ended the call abruptly. "I'll call you back." He stood up, walked out of the study and went straight to the front door. His housekeeper, Mrs. Clara, saw him and asked, "Sir, where are you going?" "Outside," he said without stopping. He opened the door and walked down the long driveway toward the gate. The guards saw him coming and immediately let go of the girl. They stood at attention. "What's going on here?" Philip asked, his voice calm but firm. "Sir, this small girl came to disturb us," the first guard said quickly. "We were just sending her away." Philip looked at Victory. She was small, thin, and her dress was dirty. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying anymore. She stood there, holding the sack tightly, staring at him with a mix of fear and hope. "Let her in," Philip said. The guards looked shocked. "Sir?" "I said let her in." "Yes, sir." They opened the gate immediately. Victory stepped inside slowly, her heart pounding. She had never been inside such a big compound before. The driveway was smooth and shiny. The flowers were bright and beautiful. Everything looked so clean, so perfect. Philip walked closer to her and stopped a few feet away. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Victory, sir," she answered, her voice quiet. "Victory," he repeated. "What are you doing here?" Victory looked down at the ground. "I'm selling yams, sir. My mother is sick in the hospital. The doctor said if I don't pay 45,000 naira by tomorrow morning, they will stop treating her." Philip's chest tightened again. He looked at the sack on her head. "How old are you, Victory?" 8 years old, sir." 8 years old, Philip whispered. "And you're out here selling yams alone?" "Yes, sir. I have no one else. My father is dead. It's just me and my mummy." Philip felt something break inside him. He had seen many people beg for money before, but this was different. This was a child who should be playing, not carrying heavy loads and knocking on strangers' gates. "How much have you made so far?" he asked. Victory reached into her pocket and brought out the crumpled notes. 18,000 naira, sir." Philip nodded. "And how much do you still need?" 27,000 naira, sir." Philip looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "Wait here. I'll help you." Victory's eyes widened. "Really, sir?" "Yes. But first, let me take you inside." "You look tired." Victory hesitated. "Sir, I don't want to trouble you." "It's no trouble," Philip said with a small smile. "Come." He led her up the driveway, past the fountain, and into the mansion. Victory's mouth fell open. The inside of the house was even more beautiful than the outside. The floors were made of shiny marble. The walls had big paintings. The ceiling was high with a crystal chandelier hanging in the center. "Wait here," Philip said, pointing to a chair in the large sitting room. "I'll go get my wallet." Victory sat down carefully, afraid to touch anything. She placed the sack of yams on the floor beside her. Philip walked toward his study room, which was just down the hallway. As Victory waited, she looked around. Everything was so beautiful, so clean, so expensive. Then her eyes landed on something that made her heart stop. The door to the study room was slightly open. Through the crack, she could see inside. And there, on the wall behind the desk, was a large framed photograph. Victory squinted and leaned forward a little. Her breath caught in her throat. She stood up slowly and walked closer to the door. She looked through the crack again, this time more carefully. The photograph was of a young woman. She had long black curly hair, a bright smile, and kind eyes. She was wearing a yellow dress and standing in front of a beach. Victory's hands began to shake. Her heart began to pound. She knew that face. She had seen that face every single day of her life. It was her mother. Victory pushed the door open a little more and stepped inside the study room. She walked closer to the photograph, her eyes wide, her mouth open. She stood there, frozen, staring at the picture. "That's my mummy," she whispered. Philip was at his desk, opening a drawer to get his wallet. He heard her voice and turned around. He saw her standing in front of the photograph, staring at it like she had seen a ghost. "Victory," he said, confused. "What are you doing?" Victory turned to look at him, her eyes filled with tears. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling, "why is my mummy's picture in your house?" Philip froze. The room went silent. He stared at her, his mind spinning. "What did you say?" "That picture," Victory said, pointing at the wall. "That's my mummy." "Why do you have her picture?" Philip's face went pale. He walked toward the photograph slowly, then looked back at Victory. "Your mother," he whispered. "Yes, sir. Her name is Lilith. That's my mummy." Philip felt the ground shift under his feet. His heart started pounding so hard he thought it would burst. He looked at the picture, then at Victory, then at the picture again. "Lilith," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Your mother's name is Lilith?" "Yes, sir." Philip's eyes filled with tears. He covered his mouth with his hand and turned away. His whole body was shaking. Victory didn't understand what was happening. She just stood there, confused and scared. Then, from behind them, a sharp voice cut through the silence. "What is going on here?" Victory and Philip both turned around. Standing in the doorway was an old woman. She was tall, elegant, and dressed in expensive clothes. Her face was hard, her eyes cold. It was Mrs. Patricia Johnson, Philip's mother. She looked at Victory with disgust. "Who is this dirty child? And why is she in my son's study?" Philip wiped his eyes quickly. "Mother, I don't care who she is," Mrs. Patricia snapped. "Get her out of here." Now, Victory took a step back, frightened. Philip tried to speak again. "Mother, please, just listen." "No," Mrs. Patricia said firmly. She walked toward Victory and pointed at the door. "You get out, now." "But Victory started. "I said get out," Mrs. Patricia shouted. She grabbed Victory by the arm and pulled her toward the door. "Mother, stop," Philip said, his voice rising. But his mother didn't listen. "This girl is a scammer," Mrs. Patricia said coldly. "She saw the picture and now she's trying to manipulate you. She's lying. She's using your pain to get money from you." "No, Ma, I'm not lying," Victory cried. "That's really my mummy." "Shut up," Mrs. Patricia hissed. She dragged Victory out of the study, through the sitting room, and out the front door. She pushed her down the driveway and shouted at the guards. "Throw this girl out and make sure she never comes back." The guards opened the gate and pushed Victory outside. She fell to the ground, scraping her knee. The sack of yams fell beside her. The gate slammed shut. Victory sat on the ground, crying. Her knee was bleeding. Her heart was breaking. She didn't understand what had just happened. She didn't understand why that woman was so angry. But she had to go. She had to get back to her mother. She picked up the sack, wiped her tears, and started walking back to the hospital. By the time Victory reached the hospital, it was already evening. Her legs were tired, her arms were sore, her knee was still bleeding. But she didn't care. She had the money. She went straight to the reception desk and handed the 18,000 naira to the nurse. "Please, Ma. This is for my mother's bill. Her name is Lilith." The nurse counted the money and shook her head. "This is not enough. The bill is 45,000 naira. "I know, Ma," Victory said, "but please, just take this for now. I'll bring the rest tomorrow, I promise." The nurse sighed. "Okay, but if you don't bring the remaining 27,000 naira by tomorrow morning, we will stop the treatment." "Yes, Ma. Thank you, Ma." Victory ran to her mother's room. When she opened the door, she saw her mother awake. Lilith was sitting up in bed, weak but conscious. Her eyes lit up when she saw Victory. "Victory," she said softly. "Where have you been? I was so worried." Victory ran to her mother and hugged her tightly. "Mommy, you're awake." Lilith stroked her daughter's hair. "Yes, my baby. I'm awake. But where did you go? It's already night." Victory pulled away and looked at her mother. "Mommy, I went to sell yams." "I needed money for your hospital bill." Lilith's eyes filled with tears. "Victory, you didn't have to do that. You're just a child. But Mommy, the doctor said if we don't pay, they'll stop treating you." "I had to do it." Lilith held her daughter's face in her hands. "My strong girl, I'm so proud of you." She paused and looked at Victory's torn dress and bleeding knee. "But what happened to you? Why are you hurt?" Victory sat on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. "Mommy, something strange happened today." "What happened?" Lilith asked, her voice full of concern. Victory began to tell her story slowly. "I was selling yams in Victoria Island. Some people bought from me, some people chased me away. But then I reached this very big house, the biggest house I've ever seen, Mommy. It had a golden gate and white pillars." Lilith listened quietly, her heart starting to beat faster. "The guards at the gate didn't want to let me in," Victory continued. "They were pushing me away. But then a man came out of the house. He told them to let me in." Lilith's hands began to tremble. "What man?" she whispered. A tall man, Mommy. He was wearing a white suit. He had kind eyes. He asked me my name and why I was selling yams. I told him about you, about how you're sick. He said he would help me. Lilith's eyes widened. Then what happened? He took me inside the mansion, Victory said. Mommy, the house was so beautiful, like the ones we see on TV. He told me to wait in the sitting room while he went to get his wallet. Lilith's breathing became faster, and then Victory looked at her mother with innocent eyes. Mommy, I saw something through the door of his study room. There was a big picture on the wall. And Mommy, her voice dropped to a whisper, it was your picture. Lilith gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Yes, Mommy, Victory said. It was you. You were wearing a yellow dress and standing near the sea. You looked younger, but it was definitely you. I asked him why he had your picture. Lilith's whole body started shaking. Tears rolled down her cheeks. What did he say? He didn't say anything, Mommy. He just stared at me like he saw a ghost. He started crying, but then an old woman came. She was very angry. She shouted at me and called me a liar. She said I was trying to trick them. Then she dragged me out of the house and told the guards to throw me out. Lilith covered her face with both hands and began to sob. Oh God, no. Mommy, what's wrong? Victory asked, frightened by her mother's reaction. Why are you crying? Lilith tried to compose herself, but her hands were still shaking. She looked at Victory with eyes full of pain and fear. Victory, listen to me very carefully. We need to leave this hospital tonight. What? But Mommy, you're still sick. The doctor said. I don't care what the doctor said, Lilith said urgently. We need to leave. We need to leave Lagos. We need to go far away, where they can't find us. Mommy, you're scaring me, Victory said, her voice trembling. Who can't find us? Lilith took her daughter's hands and held them tightly. Victory, that man you saw today, that man in the mansion, do you remember his face? Victory nodded. Yes, Mommy. Victory, Lilith said, her voice breaking. That man is your father. Victory's eyes went wide. For a moment she couldn't speak. She just stared at her mother, unable to process what she had just heard. What? She finally whispered. His name is Philip, Lilith said, tears streaming down her face. Philip Johnson. He's your father. But Mommy, Victory said, confusion written all over her face. You told me my father was dead. You said he died before I was born. Lilith shook her head, crying harder now. I lied, Victory. I had to lie. I had to protect you. Protect me from what? Victory asked, her voice rising. Mommy, I don't understand. If he's my father, why did we run away? Why have we been living in poverty? Why didn't you tell me? Lilith pulled Victory closer and hugged her tightly. Because my baby, his mother wanted to kill you. Victory pulled back sharply. What? Lilith wiped her tears and took a deep breath. She knew it was time to tell her daughter the truth. The whole truth. Victory, sit down. I need to tell you a story. A story about how I met your father, about how much we loved each other, and about why we can never go back. Victory sat on the bed, her heart pounding, her mind racing. Lilith began to speak. 8 years ago, I was 22 years old. I worked as a receptionist at a hotel in Victoria Island. The hotel was very big and fancy. Rich people came there all the time. I was happy with my job. I was saving money to go back to school. Lilith paused, a small smile appearing on her face despite her tears. One day, a young man walked into the hotel. He was tall, handsome, and different. Most rich people who came to the hotel were rude. They treated us like we were nothing, but not him. He smiled at me. He asked me how my day was going. He treated me like I mattered. That was Daddy? Victory asked softly. Lilith nodded. Yes, that was Philip, your father. He started coming to the hotel more often. Every time he came, he would stop at my desk and talk to me. He would ask about my dreams, my family, my life. I told him I had no family, that I was an orphan, that I was working to survive. Lilith's eyes became distant, as if she was seeing the past. He didn't look at me with pity like others did. He looked at me with respect, with kindness. We became friends. Then we started meeting outside the hotel. We would go to the beach, to restaurants, to parks. He showed me a world I had never seen before. Then one day, Lilith continued, her voice soft, he told me he loved me. He said, "Lilith, I don't care that you have no family. I don't care that you have no money. I love you for who you are. You are the most genuine person I have ever met." And I loved him too, Victory. I loved him so much. Victory listened, tears forming in her own eyes. She had never heard her mother talk like this before. "We were together for almost a year," Lilith said, "the happiest year of my life. Then one day, I started feeling sick. I went to the hospital and the doctor told me I was pregnant. I was scared, Victory. So scared. But when I told Philip, he was so happy. He lifted me up and spun me around. He said, 'Lilith, this is the best news I've ever heard. We're going to be a family.'" Lilith's face darkened, but then he said he wanted me to meet his mother. He wanted to tell her about the pregnancy and about our plan to get married. I was so nervous. I knew his mother was a very powerful woman. She came from old money. She had high expectations. But Philip kept saying, "Don't worry, she will love you just like I love you." "But she didn't love me," Lilith said, her voice turning bitter. "The day Philip took me to meet her, she looked at me like I was trash. She asked me where I came from. I told her I was an orphan. She asked me what my parents did. I said they were dead. She asked me if I went to university. I said I only finished secondary school." Lilith's hands clenched into fists. Then she laughed. She laughed at me, Victory. She said, "So you expect me to let a nobody, a poor orphan with no education and no family background, become my daughter-in-law? You must be joking." Philip tried to defend me. He said, "Mother, I love her. I'm going to marry her whether you like it or not." "What did she say?" Victory asked. "She smiled," Lilith said, a cold, evil smile. She said, "Okay, Philip. If that's what you want, go ahead. Marry her. I won't stop you." Philip was so happy. He thought she had accepted me. But I saw something in her eyes. Something dark. Something dangerous. I knew she was lying. Lilith's voice dropped to almost a whisper. That night, I was sleeping in the small room I rented near the hotel. It was around midnight. I heard a knock on my door. When I opened it, Mrs. Patricia was standing there. She was alone. No driver, no bodyguard, just her. Victory's eyes widened. What did she do? "She walked into my room without permission," Lilith said. "She looked around at my poor furniture, my small bed, my old clothes. Then she looked at me and said, 'Let me make something very clear to you. You will never marry my son. You will never be part of my family. You are nothing but a gold digger.'" Lilith's voice shook. I told her I loved Philip. I told her I wasn't with him for his money, but she didn't care. She came closer to me and said in a voice so cold it made my blood freeze, "If you don't leave my son, I will kill that baby inside you, and if you think I'm joking, try me. I have the money and the power to make you disappear. No one will even know you existed." Victory covered her mouth in shock. "She said that?" Lilith nodded, tears flowing freely now. "Yes, and I knew she meant it. I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't bluffing. So that night, after she left, I packed everything I owned into one small bag. I took the little money I had saved, and I ran. I left Lagos and went to a village far away. I didn't tell Philip. I didn't tell anyone. I just disappeared." "But why didn't you tell Daddy?" Victory asked. "Maybe he could have protected us." Lilith shook her head. "Victory, you don't understand. Back then, Philip was still young. He was only 27 years old. Yes, he had money, but most of his wealth was still controlled by his mother. She had the power, the connections, the influence. If I had told him, he would have tried to fight her. And she would have destroyed him too. Or worse, she would have killed you before you were even born." Lilith looked at her daughter with eyes full of pain. "I chose you, Victory. I chose your life over my love. I spent my entire pregnancy hiding in that village. I had you in a small clinic. No friends, no family, just me and you. And when you were born, I looked at your tiny face and I knew I had made the right choice." Victory's tears fell silently. She didn't know what to say. "We moved back to Lagos when you were 2 years old," Lilith continued. "I thought enough time had passed. I changed my last name. I stayed away from Victoria Island. I worked hard to make sure we had food and shelter. And I told you your father was dead because I thought it would be easier than explaining the truth." Lilith held Victory's face in her hands. "But now they know. Now they've seen you. That old woman will not stop, Victory. She will find us. And she will do whatever it takes to make sure we disappear again. That's why we need to leave, tonight." Before Victory could respond, they heard footsteps in the hallway outside the room, multiple footsteps, coming closer. Lilith's face went pale. "Oh no," she whispered. The door to the hospital room opened, and there, standing in the doorway, was Philip. His eyes were red and swollen. His suit was wrinkled. His hair was messy. He looked like he had been crying for hours. Behind him stood Dr. Adebayo and 2 nurses. "Lilith," Philip said, his voice breaking, "it's really you." Lilith tried to get out of bed, panic written all over her face. "Philip, please, you need to leave. You need to go." "Leave?" Philip said, stepping into the room. "Lilith, I've been searching for you for 8 years. 8 years. Do you know what that did to me? Do you know how many nights I stayed awake, wondering if you were alive or dead?" "Philip, please," Lilith started, but Philip raised his hand. "No," he said firmly, "no more running. No more hiding. I need to understand. Why did you leave me? Why did you take my daughter away from me?" Victory looked between her mother and father, her heart breaking at the pain in both their faces. Lilith's voice was barely a whisper. "Your mother threatened to kill our baby." Philip froze. The room went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. "What?" he finally said. "Your mother came to my room the night after we met her," Lilith said, tears streaming down her face. "She told me if I didn't leave you, she would kill our baby. She said she had the power and the money to make us disappear. And I believed her, Philip. I knew she was capable of it." Philip's face went from shock to rage, his hands clenched into fists, his jaw tightened. "My mother did what?" "I'm sorry," Lilith sobbed. "I'm so sorry. But I had to protect Victory. I had to choose her life over us." Philip's legs seemed to give out. He stumbled backward and leaned against the wall. He covered his face with his hands and let out a sound that was somewhere between a cry and a scream. It was the sound of a man whose heart had just been shattered into a million pieces. Dr. Adebayo, who had been standing quietly by the door, cleared his throat. "Sir, perhaps we should give them some privacy." "No," Philip said, wiping his face roughly. "No, I need to be here." He walked toward Lilith's bed, his steps slow and deliberate. When he reached her, he knelt down beside the bed and took her hand. "Lilith," he said, his voice hoarse from crying, "I was young and stupid back then. I was still dependent on my mother, but not anymore. I have my own companies now, my own money, my own power, and I swear to you, on everything I own, I will never let her hurt you or Victory ever again." Lilith shook her head, still crying. "Philip, you don't understand. Your mother is powerful. She has connections everywhere. I don't care," Philip said, his voice growing stronger. "I don't care how powerful she is. I'm not losing you again. I'm not losing my daughter again. I lost 8 years with Victory. 8 years I can never get back. Birthdays I missed. First words I didn't hear. First steps I didn't see. I will not lose one more day." He stood up and looked at Dr. Adebayo. "Doctor, what's the total hospital bill?" "Sir, it's 45,000 naira, the doctor replied. "I'm paying it. All of it. Right now, and I want the best treatment for her, the best doctors, the best medicine, whatever it takes." "Philip, you don't have to—" Lilith started. "Yes, I do," Philip said. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Hello, this is Philip Johnson. I'm at Ikeja General Hospital. I need you to transfer 100,000 naira to the hospital's account right now. Yes, right now. Thank you." He ended the call and looked at the doctor. "The money will be in your account in the next 5 minutes. I'm also covering any additional costs for the next 2 weeks. I want her to get the best care possible." Dr. Adebayo nodded, clearly impressed. "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. We'll make sure she gets excellent treatment." My sweet family, before moving forward with the story, tell us where you are watching from. Lagos, Abuja, Accra, Nairobi, Johannesburg, London, Paris, Toronto. Write your location below so we know how far love and pain can travel in this world. Don't forget to like this video to support good stories. Hit subscribe to my channel so you never miss those moments that make your heart stop and think. Philip turned back to Lilith and Victory. And when you're better, both of you are coming with me. I have an apartment ready, a safe place where my mother can't find you. Philip, I don't know if that's a good idea, Lilith said weakly. Your mother will have to go through me first, Philip said firmly. And I promise you, Lilith, this time I'm ready for her. This time I won't let her win. Victory, who had been quiet this whole time, suddenly spoke up. Daddy? Philip turned to look at his daughter. Hearing her call him Daddy for the first time made fresh tears spring to his eyes. Yes, Victory. Are you really my daddy? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. Philip knelt down so he was at her eye level. Yes, Victory, I'm your daddy. And I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you all these years. I'm so sorry you had to carry yams on your head. I'm so sorry you had to suffer. But from today, that changes. From today, I will take care of you and your mother, I promise. Victory looked at him for a long moment, studying his face. Then slowly, she reached out and touched his cheek. You look like me, she said softly. Philip laughed through his tears. Yes, I do. You have my eyes. And my nose. You're my daughter. My beautiful daughter. Victory wrapped her small arms around his neck and hugged him tightly. Philip held her close, and for the first time in 8 years, he felt complete. He felt like the missing piece of his heart had finally been found. Dr. Adebayo cleared his throat again. Sir, madam, I'll give you some privacy now. If you need anything, please let the nurses know. He and the nurses quietly left the room. Philip stood up, still holding Victory. He sat on the edge of Lilith's bed with Victory on his lap. The three of them sat together in silence for a moment, each processing everything that had just happened. I can't believe this is real, Lilith whispered, after all these years. It's real, Philip said, reaching out to hold her hand. I found you, and I'm never letting you go again. But your mother, Lilith started again. Lilith, listen to me, Philip said, looking into her eyes. I know you're scared. I know you have every reason to be, but I need you to trust me. Things are different now. I'm different now. I'm not the young man who was afraid to stand up to his mother. I'm ready to fight for us. For our family. Lilith looked at him, wanting to believe him, but fear still clouded her eyes. She's dangerous, Philip. You don't know what she's capable of. Then it's time I find out, Philip said, because I'm done living in fear. I'm done letting her control my life, and I'm done letting her keep me away from the people I love. Victory looked up at her father. Are we going to be a family now? Like other families? Philip smiled and kissed her forehead. Yes, baby girl. We're going to be a family, a real family. That night, after Philip left to make arrangements, Lilith lay in her hospital bed, unable to sleep. Her mind was racing. Part of her was happy. Philip had found them. He still loved her. He wanted to be a father to Victory. But another part of her was terrified. She knew Mrs. Patricia would not let this happen easily. Meanwhile, across town in the Johnson mansion, Mrs. Patricia sat in her large bedroom, also unable to sleep. She had noticed something was wrong with Philip. He had come home late, his eyes red, his face tense. When she asked him what was wrong, he simply said, "Nothing, mother," and went straight to his room. But Mrs. Patricia was not stupid. She had seen the way Philip looked at that little girl earlier. She had seen the shock on his face when the girl mentioned her mother's name. And she knew what that meant. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. Hello, Chief. Yes, it's Patricia. I need you to do something for me. Find out everything you can about a woman named Lilith. She used to work at the Imperial Hotel about 8 years ago. Yes, that's right. I want to know where she is, who she's with, everything. Money is not a problem. Just get me the information. Tomorrow, the next morning, Philip arrived at the hospital early. He brought food, fresh clothes for both Lilith and Victory, and even toys for Victory. He had also arranged for a private room so Lilith could recover in comfort. Good morning, he said cheerfully as he entered the room. I brought breakfast. Victory jumped up excitedly. Daddy? You came back. Of course I came back, Philip said, lifting her up and spinning her around. I told you I'm not going anywhere. Lilith smiled weakly from the bed. She looked better than yesterday, but still tired. Philip, you didn't have to bring all this. Yes, I did, Philip said. He set Victory down and started unpacking the food. I brought jollof rice, plantain, chicken and fresh juice. You both need to eat well. As they ate together, Philip told them about his plans. I have an apartment in Lekki. It's quiet, secure and comfortable. When you're discharged, you and Victory will move there. Philip, I can't let you do all this, Lilith protested. We can manage on our own. Lilith, please, Philip said, taking her hand. Let me do this. Let me take care of my family. I've missed 8 years. Don't take this away from me, too. Lilith looked at him and saw the sincerity in his eyes. She nodded slowly. Okay. Over the next week, Philip visited the hospital every single day. He brought food, books for Victory, flowers for Lilith, and most importantly, his presence. Victory began to open up to him. She told him about school, about her friends, about how her mother sold yams every day. Each story broke Philip's heart a little more. His daughter had suffered so much. His Lilith had struggled so much. And it was all because of his mother. On the 7th day, Dr. Adebayo came to check on Lilith. Good news, he said with a smile. You're recovering well. If everything continues like this, you can be discharged in 3 days. Philip smiled. That's wonderful news. But that afternoon, everything changed. Philip received a phone call from his assistant. Sir, your mother wants to see you urgently. She said it's important. Philip's jaw tightened. He knew this was coming. Tell her I'll be there in an hour. He turned to Lilith, who had heard the conversation. Fear was written all over her face. She knows, Lilith whispered. She knows you found us. It doesn't matter, Philip said firmly. Let her know. I'm ready for her. When Philip arrived at the mansion, Mrs. Patricia was waiting for him in the sitting room. She was dressed immaculately as always, sitting on her favorite chair with a cup of tea in her hand. Sit down, Philip, she said coldly. Philip remained standing. What do you want, Mother? Mrs. Patricia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I know about the girl and her mother. That poor woman Lilith, or whatever her name is. Her name is Lilith, Philip said through clenched teeth. And that girl is Victory. Your granddaughter. Mrs. Patricia's smile vanished. She is not my granddaughter. That woman trapped you 8 years ago, and now she's back to finish what she started. Can't you see she's using that child to manipulate you? Manipulate me? Philip's voice rose. Mother, I found them by accident. Victory came to this house selling yams because her mother was dying in a hospital. She didn't even know who I was. She had no idea I was her father. A clever act, Mrs. Patricia said dismissively. That woman trained her well. No, Philip said, his voice shaking with anger. What's clever is how you threatened to kill an innocent baby 8 years ago. How you drove away the woman I loved. How you destroyed my chance at happiness. Mrs. Patricia stood up sharply. I did what any mother would do. I protected you from a gold digger, from someone who wanted to trap you with a pregnancy. She didn't trap me, Philip shouted. I loved her, I still love her, and that child is mine, my daughter, whether you accept it or not. Then you're a fool, Mrs. Patricia said coldly, just like your father was. Don't you dare bring my father into this, Philip warned. Mrs. Patricia walked closer to him. Listen to me very carefully, Philip. If you continue this foolishness with that woman and her child, I will cut you off completely. No more access to the family accounts, no more properties in my name. Nothing. Philip laughed bitterly. Do you really think I care about that? Mother, I built my own companies. I have my own money. Your threats don't scare me anymore. Mrs. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Is that so? Then perhaps I should go directly to them. Have a little conversation with Lilith and her daughter. Philip grabbed his mother's arm. Something he had never done before. If you go anywhere near them, if you even breathe in their direction, I will make sure you regret it. I'm not the weak boy I was 8 years ago. Touch my family, and you'll see what I'm capable of. Mrs. Patricia looked at her son with shock. She had never seen him like this. So angry, so determined, so strong. Philip released her arm and stepped back. I came here today to tell you something. Lilith and Victory are moving into my apartment in Lekki. They are my family now, and if you can't accept that, then you and I have nothing more to say to each other. You would choose them over your own mother? Mrs. Patricia asked, her voice trembling slightly. You made that choice 8 years ago when you threatened to kill my child, Philip said quietly. I'm just living with the consequences. He turned and walked toward the door. Philip, Mrs. Patricia called out, if you walk out that door, don't come back. Philip stopped, but didn't turn around. Goodbye, Mother. He walked out of the mansion, got into his car and drove away. As he drove, tears rolled down his cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. For the first time in 8 years, he felt free. 3 days later, Lilith was discharged from the hospital. Philip came to pick them up in his car. He had arranged everything. The apartment was ready. He had bought clothes for both Lilith and Victory, furniture, groceries, everything they needed. When they arrived at the apartment, Victory's eyes went wide. Is this where we're going to live? She asked in awe. Yes, baby, Philip said. This is your new home. The apartment had 3 bedrooms, a large sitting room, a modern kitchen, and a balcony with a beautiful view of the city. Victory ran from room to room, excited and amazed. Lilith stood in the sitting room, tears rolling down her cheeks. Philip, this is too much. Philip walked over to her and wiped her tears. It's not too much. It's what you deserve. What you both deserve. That evening, after Victory had gone to bed in her new room, Philip and Lilith sat together on the balcony. The city lights sparkled below them. The air was cool and peaceful. I still can't believe this is happening, Lilith said softly. It feels like a dream. It's not a dream, Philip said, taking her hand. It's real. We're real. Lilith looked at him. What about your mother? She won't give up easily. I know, Philip said, but I meant what I said. I'm done letting her control my life. From now on, I make my own choices, and I choose you. I choose Victory. I choose us. Lilith rested her head on his shoulder. I never stopped loving you, you know, even when I ran away, even when I told myself to forget you. My heart never let you go. Philip wrapped his arm around her. I never stopped looking for you. Every woman I met, I compared to you. Every relationship I tried, it felt empty, because none of them were you. They sat in silence for a moment, just holding each other, making up for 8 years of lost time. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If you loved this story and want to see more heartwarming tales like this, please drop a comment below saying more stories. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we upload our next amazing story. Thank you once again for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.